Hello, a very good evening, and welcome to the 38th edition of Trendz Talks. As you know, we started this during the pandemic in order to reach out to different people from different walks of life so that they can help motivate and inspire us in the specialty they are in. And today we have Dr. Swati Deepak, who specializes in clinical psychology and also works in the area of psychotherapy to guide and motivate us during the pandemic. Today's topic would be on empowering relationship, and the focus area would be on the learning aspect and respect. So over to you, ma'am.
Namaste. Like he said, my name is Swati. We'll be talking about relationships, but if we start with a slight preamble on the whole thing, a lot of times it's believed that happy stories happen only in the story world, or happily ever after is part of a fantasy world, or it happens in stories. To go beyond that part of it, a lot of times we believe it cannot happen in real life. Relationships are meant to be for by compromising. Relationships are meant to require a lot of adaptation, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of giving up of yourself to be halfway with the people. Now, here, as psychologist, as somebody who is in a relationship and in a lot of relationships and works with relationships, we recognize that there is a happily ever after. When we say happily ever after, as in finding that rhythm that goes between two people to be able to make the most of themselves in a relationship and to also add to another person's life. So if we look at stories, what ends up happening? In the first half of a story, usually it is like we have great chemistry, we have a great rapport, everything is going to be beautiful. But it's only in the second half of a story that a lot of things unfold. A lot of real life villains, as in outsiders, come in, or a lot of inadequacies within ourselves, as in our weaknesses become a part of the relationship. And when weaknesses become a part of the relationship, automatically it ends up becoming that relationships are meant to compromise or sacrifice, or they are not meant to be happy. So here is where we will need to learn a little about relationships, is that what we need to recognize is what makes things happier is the second half of a story, not the first half of a story. So having great chemistry, having the right kind of a lot of words like compatibility and things like that are used very loosely nowadays. So having all of that in the first half is relevant. It's not irrelevant. But what makes a relationship beautiful is the second half part of it, in the sense that I need to recognize my weaknesses and I need to work through them to be able to be in a relationship. At the same time, I will need to be able to recognize the weaknesses of the other person and be able to live with those weaknesses whilst that person is working on them alongside you. So while strengths bring us together in relationships, relationships are empowered by recognizing the importance of my own weaknesses, my own excess baggage, my own handicaps, and being able to recognize that of the other person too. Now here a lot of people say, yes, we need to accept, we need to not have expectations from each other, we need to just be okay with each other's personalities. But the more close a relationship is, automatically the sense of slight intolerance goes up. So if you're talking only about friendships, a lot of times it is easier to accept the handicaps of our friends, because finally they will go to their house, you will go to your house, and that is not impacting your otherwise the way you are looking at your own personal space. When you look at professional relationships, again, you can use a lot more logic there. You can use a lot more of the common goal as an idea, saying, why are we working together? And use that as a crux of maintaining relationships where the weaknesses of the personalities can be still kept aside to be able to work with our strengths only. The more you come closer, you end up calling people a family. You take it even more closer when you're talking about a marriage, you're talking about parenting. Automatically, in these relationships, your weaknesses is not something you can hide away from. So, in my understanding of years of working with relationships, what works for the best is recognizing these weaknesses, being able to respect ourselves and the weaknesses, and continually putting in the right effort to grow as people. Strengths need to develop, weaknesses need to be outgrown. So here, according to me, two things are very important to make a relationship feel complete, to make us feel that we are empowered in a relationship and we are empowering each other in the relationship. The first thing would be a sense of respect. When I mean what it is to respect, we will have to separate it from fear. If I say that I am scared of I respect my father and that is why I will not smoke in front of him. Now, this thing is not coming from a sense of respect. It could be coming from a sense of fear. So if at all you respect your parents, you respect your own body for all that you want to say, you automatically will not be smoking. It's not about hiding something and doing something in the shadows while you present a very different picture to another person. So, or saying that I don't argue with my parent because I respect my parent a lot. Now, argument ends up happening when there are slight differences of opinion, when there are certain feelings which are interfering with the functioning of an individual. And if I feel that suppressing that with the fear of argument means I'm respecting that person, then again, honesty goes for a toss. And when honesty goes for a toss, in again, my understanding, we can disagree on the point. When honesty goes for a toss, even respect for oneself as well as the relationship goes for a toss. So you want to have a persona or a different image of yourself in front of people with whom you wouldn't care too much, in the sense they don't need to know you as a person. You don't need to present yourself as to who you are in front of that person. That mask is absolutely okay. But the deeper and the more intimate relationship you want to go into, you want to not have a mask. You want to be liked for what you are, for your great points and your weak points, and vice versa. So respect here, in my understanding, is where you feel valued and you feel that you have the right amount of togetherness and personal space, right? So when I mean togetherness, I know a lot of relationships where the space is very good. They don't question each other. They both have their own sets of friends. They respect each other's relationships with their respective families. Agar hum marriage par se example lein, they respect each other's families in a way that they will not interfere with each other's families. And here they are able to value what the other person wants very much. Now, this is a great thing as a starting point. But what are the things that are common? What are the things that they do as part of decision making? Is it about saying, your family you manage, my family I will manage? Your income, whatever you bring as money, you manage, my income I will manage. So, do you work on the relationship by creating separate compartments, or are you able to find that rhythm of togetherness, wherein you come together, then you do your own thing, then you come together, then you do your own thing, and you find that right timing of togetherness and personal space? It's not like one person is in a romantic mood, the other person wants to discuss finances. One person is preoccupied with their official things, and the other person wants to be sitting down together only and watching a movie. So you need to find that right sense of timing with each other, so that value that we have of the person, their emotions, of their time, that is what I feel is about respecting. And we need to also have that self-respect enough in that relationship. Now, a lot of times people believe, I will not let anybody say anything wrong to me. I'm a self-respecting person. Now, this comes in with fear. Why are you scared that somebody end up telling you something which will offend you? You just need to know in relationships, at times you end up throwing your own trash on each other. Does not make it personal, saying the other person is humiliating you or putting you down. So, feeling that security in the relationship that you are in also means that you're respecting yourself in that relationship. But continuing to be in a relationship where you are feeling disrespected and you're constantly having to fight for your respect, calling it self-respect, I would ask you to think once again as to why are you in a relationship where you know that you have to fight for your self-respect. So self-respect is again coming from that ease, that comfort, and that honesty, where you can feel what you want to feel and you can communicate in the right tone, in the right words, at the right time, of course, but you can communicate what you're feeling rather than walking on eggshells. इस topic पे बात हो जाएगी तो फिर झगड़ा हो जाएगा, इस पे हो जाएगी तो that person will walk up. This fear cannot be present when we respect each other. So respect is extremely vital, and that empowers our relationships a lot. And the second thing that is very important is learning from each other. We are all very privy to the idioms, the sayings, birds of a feather flock together. At the same time, we also say opposites attract. Now, a lot of times it seems very contradictory when we go to commonsensical knowledge, saying this is also correct, this is also correct. So what is exactly correct? Both are correct. Birds of a feather flock together. There's something common in ideology, in interest, in the way you perceive life, in the way you dream, or the things you want to do with yourself and with your own life. There's something common which brings people together. And after that particular thing, opposites attract. So your strengths can help me with my weaknesses, and my strengths can help you with your weaknesses, and we learn and grow with each other to become more and more complete versions of ourselves. Now, this is something which is true to every relationship. Great friendships are friendships where you have something in common. At the same time, there is some learning which comes as part of it. Families, you find that little common thing. So if you look at marriages, if not anything else, you find finances, children, in-laws, all of this as a common territory to be able to work together upon. Even if you are from different interests and different backgrounds and different professions, you still find in your children, in your families, that hook of commonness. So birds of a feather flock together, and what you learn from each other becomes important. So we'll take a small example. Suppose I come from an enmeshed family. What an enmeshed family means is that can we pause? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can continue now.
So the enmeshed family, as in we come from a family saying that you are always into each other's business. You're always talking about each other. You're always giving each other advice. You're always basically feeling everything or being a part of everything that your family members are going through. Now, this person ends up discovering a kind of world where there is a detached family format, wherein people do their own stuff. They meet once in a way, they sit down, they laugh together. They are not into each other's business. Sukh dukh ke liye bhi, they will not reach out to these people first. They have their own separate support systems, but they find their own element of saying we are a family and we work together in a way that everybody figures out their business and we meet once a year. Now, both these people, when one person from an enmeshed family and one person from a detached family come together, it is for these two people to find their own kind of a relationship. So the enmeshed person can bring in a little more involvement rather than just the detached family wala format saying you do your stuff, I do my stuff, and we laugh on the same 10 jokes. And the detached family person can bring in a slight sense of independence, saying I can be happy even if my sibling right now is going through stress. Does not mean I don't empathize that, but I don't need to be constantly worried or bogged down upon, depending on what is happening with uh, the other family members. So they create their own combination of how much involvement and how much independence do they want to bring into the relationship. So every relationship needs to have its own flavor. It cannot have social rules. If you're talking about an empowered relationship, you can't say that you're supposed to talk only in this tone, then it is a good relationship. You're not supposed to argue, then it is a good relationship. The husband is supposed to do ABC, the wife is supposed to do XYZ, the children are supposed to do PQR. It doesn't work with any of those rules. It is about two people wanting to be together, adding to each other's life, finding that sense of respect and comfort wherein they are able to be completely themselves is what an empowered relationship is. Now, here, this can be crowded. The reason why we say that we have to empower relationships, you can't take it for granted saying, oh, you act well and the relationship is going to be okay. You have to empower them because it is only human to have inadequacies. It's only human to have excess baggages. It's only human to feel scared, to have expectations, to assume certain things in a relationship and not believe that that needed to be communicated. So we all come with a particular mindset into a relationship, and we are faced and mirrored with that mindset with the newer people we are trying to interact with. So the more I'm okay with mirroring my own weaknesses, not in a sense of permitting somebody to insult me. I use the word mirroring it. So if I'm okay with a feedback loop which creates a sense of awareness about me within myself, both with my strengths as well as my weaknesses, automatically I feel the freedom to do that for you too. We are going to be able to respect each other because we have nothing to hide. We have no layers, we have no pretense in the relationship, and we are able to grow. So every relationship is like a plant. We nurture it, we water it, we give it sunlight, we give it fertilizers, we give it everything that it requires depending on that particular plant ka nature. And we don't push or pull or motivate a plant to grow. We just do the requisites and the plant grows. So every relationship also has its own cycle of growth. So we'll just run through the cycle of growth in relationships, and then if there are any questions, we can take them. So there is a honeymoon period to every kind of a relationship. We feel we vibe with somebody. That's how we begin to interact with them, talk to them, whether it is about creating a new friendship, whether it is about meeting a distant relative after many years, whether it is about meeting somebody with reference to dating, whether it is about being a parent and bringing up a child. There's a honeymoon period to it, saying everything seems good. We put our best foot forward and we are able to look at our common interests, the way we like each other, the way we are going to be together, in the sense that we can be thick with each other. After the honeymoon phase is over is when the weaknesses begin to become a part of it. So my inadequacies, my assumptions, my expectations that you should spend so much time with me, you should be doing ABC, you are not doing this, और वो थोड़ा शिकायत आना वो शुरू होता है. Now, is this a problem? I would say no. This is actually a progression. We are going into a space where we are beginning to give each other a little more right on each other. Saying, I give you the permission to expect from me that I should spend more time with you. So that little that you're willing to blend in with that person, that's the second phase which comes in. So that is where fear sets in. I don't want to change myself. That person is trying to be, too demanding of me. That person will make me a different person. I don't want to become that. So there is a slight confusion between togetherness and being together, growing together, versus I need my personal space and I am not going to compromise on my personal time or personal interests or personal other relationships that I have. Now here then we have to now find a chemistry. How much you give each other, how much you take away from each other for the best to be able to move to the next segment. So for example, a lot of friendships may, when one of the friends starts dating, the other people can begin to become a little upset with that person, because the kind of topics this person who has just started dating would want to talk about, or the time that person would want to spend with the other person rather than spending with the friends, a lot of priorities will change. And when the priorities will change, if the rest of the group doesn't fall in sync with that, drifting away, misunderstandings, confusions, anger, all of those things will begin to happen. So how we are able to respect this friend space, and how this friend is able to still respect these relationships and not deprioritize them to be with the boyfriend or the girlfriend. So this element that we are talking about as to how we find that rhythm, or what we call the right strokes we give each other. What the strokes means here is that, suppose for me, spending 10 minutes a day is what is required for me to feel that I am in a relationship, I'm in this friendship. For another person, talking once in 10 days is sufficient. Now, both of us will have to find a little shifting space wherein I will say that talking 10 minutes once in 5 days is enough, and the person who's saying 10 days mein ek baar bahut hai, they will have to increase their time amount and come to wanting to talk once in 5 days, if not every day. So both the people in the relationship, when they move, it is empowered. Now here many people come back and tell me, but I want to do everything, the other person is not cooperating at all. I usually feel about such a thing is, in a relationship, if it requires that I have to walk even 9 steps out of the 10, the willingness to say that this relationship is important enough and I will walk the 9 steps is a willingness I should be able to put in, rather than making it competitive or egocentric, saying मैंने एक कदम लिया तो सामने वाले ने एक कदम लेना चाहिए. The question arises, then why am I saying 9 and not all the 10 steps? Because the choice to be in a relationship is as important as being in one. So, माँ बाप ने शादी करा दिया, अब शादी हो गया तो I have to be in this relationship. Or I like my spouse enough to want to be in this marriage. They are two significantly very different emotions. So, the one step that I will walk 9 and let that one step be, that would be so that I only recognize the willingness of that other person and I'm not pushing myself onto the other person. Now, this is not coming from assumption कि हाँ उसको तो पड़ी नहीं है, उसने इस मैसेज का जवाब नहीं दिया, मतलब उसको तो मेरा कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. Not by assumptions of those kind, by communication and consistent efforts that we make towards a particular person. Now, in films, this particular thing is shown beautifully. Is we feel I'm making the effort, the other person is not. Is that suppose the hero heroine believe that they are not able to manage together and they begin to distance. Now, when the hero turns and sees the heroine is walking, so he feels okay, she has moved on. And when the heroine turns and sees the hero is walking, she feels he has moved on. So what went wrong was the timing when they saw each other. So when the heroine turned, that time the hero was, his back was facing her. And when the hero turned, that time the heroine's back was facing him. And that is why the assumption that the other does not want to be with me, that assumption can be eliminated only if I have walked very much in the distance of the person towards whom I want to establish that relationship. yet leave the choice to be with me or not to be with me to that person, and not in the sense that um, I have walked the 10 steps, now you better be with me. So not put the other person in obligation to be with me, right? Now here, people end up saying, which is the next stage of the relationship, here people end up saying, why should I be putting in all the effort, and will I not be wasting a lot of time under relationships I'm running after? Now here I'm not talking about clinging on to relationships, being dependent. Our topic for today is empowering relationships. So every steady step that you take towards a person by communication, by being able to understand what they need, and being able to be on their side in a lot of ways, what we are doing is we are empowering ourselves. We are developing decision making, we are developing problem solving. So in the attempt to make a relationship better, I'm also becoming a better person. And over a period of time, you will recognize that you will know the number of relationships you will want to invest into. So if as a teenager you might run behind 50 friends, as a younger adult you might say that these 10 are important to me and I will invest everything for these relationships to be with me. So automatically the relationships you're investing in become channelized enough. And then last, after having a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of are we meant to be together, are we not meant to be together, comes the intimacy part, as in a sense of peace, saying I don't have to work on this relationship anymore, I don't have to do anything, we have just reached a place where we are able to add a lot of positive energy to each other. It could be sitting down and watching the sunrise. It could be just having a cup of tea. It could be about discussing your innermost things. It could just be what you want that relationship to be. Now, many people will say it needs to start at the honeymoon phase. Unfortunately, it doesn't. In the honeymoon phase, you can see that slight comfort with each other, but only after a lot of work, a lot of self-awareness, and a lot of building on the relationship do we reach that particular ease on the other side. So to wrap up as a thought would be, let's look at a classical dancer. If we take ballet as a format, when you are looking at a ballet, it almost seems so effortless that they are walking on their toes, that they are dancing, defying the rules of gravity, and they're able to jump and just be so light that they can be lifted easily by their partner. But if you will speak to anybody who has learned ballet, they'll come back and tell you the years of practice and the number of injuries that they have survived in order to have reached that thing that they put on stage, which is so effortless. So is with relationships. They are not fast food. They are something which take their own time to develop, to build up, and respect and learning from each other. If it's kept in the center, we are in an empowered relationship. So if there are any questions, we can take that, or I can add a thought or two more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Swati, for your initial inputs. All the while, when we were speaking about relationship, I was only imagining a relationship between a husband and a wife, but then this could have many dimensions and many layers to it at different levels. So, I mean, when I was looking at this, the youth, they have so much of aspiration today. So, I mean, when they want to do something in life, I mean, they could possibly come out as being very selfish, egoistic, and arrogant. And I mean, the other half might be having their own assumptions and expectations from each other. So, I mean, in the initial half, as you said, somehow it works, but then the second half is where the matter lies, wherein there could be some bit of confrontation. So, how does one actually deal with this situation?
We need to recognize that the format and the kind of relationships are changing quite a lot. And if the social change is going to be able to facilitate these youngsters, they are in a position to have much better relationships than we did. Now when I'm saying this, I'm not dismissing कि पहले के जमाने में अच्छे रिश्ते नहीं होते थे. I'm just saying the format is changing. So earlier on, if a girl was expected to leave a lot of the ways her family worked and come into her in-laws' place and adapt to their newer ways and begin to feel of herself in that zone, in that family, and become a visitor to her own parents, right? That format has changed drastically. What girls today expect is that the guy should also be having the same kind of a family feeling towards the girl side of the family. That today, if at all the girl side of the family are sick, the girl should be able to invite her parents freely into her house and take care of them as much as is the right of the guy's side of the parents. If at all there was a income related thing that the man brings in the income and the woman is supposed to run the house within the income that is brought in. Now the woman also brings in the income wherein there is an expectation that the man should be able to help with managing the household chores too, right? So in families where we are seeing that the boy's family is still working from a patriarchal system, saying हमारे बेटे से काम करने को कैसे कह दिया. So if the bahu is coming back from a job, she's still expected to enter the kitchen, whereas the son is allowed to be watching television. If this is the format we are still working with, the rebellion on the girl side has become way, way, way higher nowadays comparatively, because they're equally educated, they're going out and working those many donkey hours, they're doing everything that is happening. On the other end, what's happening on the other side is, in the name of wanting to be independent, and मेरी लड़की को ऐसा कैसे बोल दिया, a lot of very casual, simple remarks are also being taken as an insult by the girl or the girl side of the family, right? So everything is become a hyperbolic in a lot of ways. So at that point of time, if we are able to recognize that a couple that comes together and wants to be working a more today's generation growth, where both have the freedom to speak their mind, both have the freedom to choose their professions, both have the freedom to be able to choose a lifestyle and their friendships, the secondary support system needs to mature that much faster. We can't have parents who live in 1970s and the younger generation who's trying to accommodate and figure out their own positioning in the current hubbub, right? So the movement of the social structure can end up helping these couples a lot to be able to bring themselves together. Are they selfish? A lot of couples nowadays are able to come for therapy very, very soon. Unlike earlier years, जब झगड़ते रहते थे लेकिन ऐसा नहीं लगता था कि we need help, घर की बात घर में ही रहनी चाहिए. So there was a lot of stigma around it. The younger generation today is a lot more open, saying हमारे माँ बाप are judging each other and they are coming up with 6 महीने बात मत करो, सब प्यार हो जाएगा, बच्चा पैदा कर लो, प्यार हो जाएगा. So they don't want these solutions, so they're coming up with therapy or alternative things like that faster. So what I've seen is that the willingness to communicate is way higher in this generation. That willingness to say that I want to see the other person's perspective is also higher. Are they self-absorbed enough, or do they love themselves enough that if they choose a profession, they want to do it and they don't want to compromise or sacrifice on that, saying family ke naam pe compromise karna padta hai? But I think that's what is the freedom that we in the 40s and 50s have been able to give the next generation. In the sense, we worked donkey hours and we said कि नहीं, job तो करना ही पड़ेगा घर चलाने के लिए. We have given this generation a little more security to find their own passion, to pursue their own dreams, to be able to value what they are contributing to the society, whether it is doing an NGO or whether it's doing a corporate job or whether it is traveling and doing a vlog. That freedom that we've been able to give these children, I don't think we should brush it under selfishness. We should be looking at it as freedom and we should be able to help them in this newfound freedom find a new kind of chemistry, not define it with the way we had defined it, or not define it in the way that our grandparents had defined it. So if I look at my family's journey, my grandmother, my dadi, wasn't educated. My nani got educated because her husband died very soon, and she then did education because teaching job was the easiest to work with at that point of time. So the women weren't supposedly educated at that point of time. Two, my nani was very sure that my mother will get educated, and my mother's completed MA during those years. And it was one odd thing where a lot of people told her, why are you wasting money on a girl's education? Finally, the sasural jaake bartan hi dhone wali, or whatever. So my granny was very sure that my mom will be educated. But that generation told the next generation कि ससुराल वाले अलाव करें तो जॉब कर सकते हो, वरना घर संभालना. तो एजुकेशन कराना हमारा ड्यूटी था, but whether you can work or not is the permission of the in-laws. When I grew up, that wasn't a compulsion. My in-laws did not have the right to decide whether I will be a working woman or I'll be a homemaker. That was completely my choice to make. But my generation was told कि घर और बाहर दोनों को संभाल के करना. If at all your house is beginning to suffer because of your profession, you might want to choose your home over your profession. We were told this. We are not bringing up our daughters like that anymore, or we are not bringing up our sons like that anymore. We don't tell our children कि घर संभालना का basic जिम्मेदारी is the woman's. We say बेटा दोनों मिलके कर लेना, थोड़ा वो कर लेगा, थोड़ा तुम कर लोगे. आजकल इंटरनेट पे शॉपिंग हो जाती है, काफी जिम्मेदारियां वाला जो काम है वो काफी इजी हो गया है with getting the right help which needs to come in. So अपने सपने खुलकर जियो, अपने सपनों को तुम वो करो. So we try and make it as gender neutral as possible for this generation. But while बच्चों के लिए they are beginning to become gender neutral, parents are still in that old thinking. अरे बहू होके इतना कैसे बात कर लेती है, मतलब she is supposed to talk to us in a particular tone, या मेरे बेटे को कैसे काम करने को बोल दिया, या the boy can end up feeling that the girl's family interferes too much, उसको रोज के अपनी मम्मी से बात करना होता है, right? So here when there is confusion in the value system, it comes across as selfishness. But otherwise, I think we are giving our children a lot more freedom and a bigger platform to be able to find more satisfaction in relationships rather than stability. So this is again another concept to be looking at. There are stable relationships, there are satisfaction oriented relationships, and there are relationships which are complete, which are stable, steady, as well as satisfactory. So if in my parents' generation, stability was more important, you couldn't think of divorce at all. Maybe today's generation values satisfaction so much that they are willing to risk stability. So I'm not saying this swing is completely healthy. They still need to find the balance. Ki stability ho and satisfaction ho, and you both grow together. That meeting point right now the social system is struggling with. The children have become satisfaction oriented. We just need to help them understand the importance of stability. But we don't need to tie them down saying कि नहीं divorce का नहीं सोचते, stigma हो जाता है divorce होने का. Today's generation pays two heeds to that kind of conversation, right? So today's generation is willing to have more intimate and intense relationships. They need a little guidance, that I agree. But I think we also needed that when we were in our 20s. It's not like we knew how to deal with relationships, right? So I don't see it as selfishness. I see it as a willingness to make relationships more satisfactory that they are looking at today, where they don't have to compromise on their professional goals.
Right. So do you think what could be the reasons of a breakup? I mean, is it because the lifestyle, the cost of living has gone up and then you're not able to self-sustain, so each of them would want to part ways? Is that one of the reasons? Or there could be any other reason for breaking up? Or what do you think is the reason?
times the reasons to break up is this second phase that happens in relationship, wherein my weaknesses and your weaknesses both come into the spectrum, right? So if at all I think कि जब तक प्यार था, I thought I'll be able to convince my parents and I will be able to, fight the social structure and, we'll be able to be happily ever after. My parents are very progressive and they will not say no. You introduce your love life to your parent and your parent says नहीं नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता है, religion same नहीं है या caste same नहीं है या जन्म पत्री नहीं मिल रही है. Now a few of them will be willing to rebel, in which they don't want to make a choice between family and the girlfriend or the boyfriend, but they are forced to make that choice. Or there are certain people who don't realize that they feel so much that they cannot rebel against their family, that the assumption that everything is okay in my family and they are progressive, that assumption shatters so badly that you don't fight for the relationship anymore, right? So the secondary support system, as I said, that isn't maturing as fast as the younger generation is maturing. What I mean to say is that every day there are some updates willing to happen on the internet. So if my phone is my life, I'm just used to everything moving very fast. But relationships still require that very shant, stable space, and you don't update and you are not, agitated in a relationship all the time for more. You settle in. तो वो settlement का जो उनको help चाहिए, वो कई बार वो नहीं मिल पाता है. So working hours become very different. That एक जन night shift कर रहा है, एक जन day shift कर रहा है, and they are not having time at all, and they don't realize that they have begun to drift apart. They've really not had time to talk to each other. Right? So, or they don't realize that their weaknesses can become a part of it. That I thought I'm a very progressive person, but in my mind I could be very patriarchal in my way of thinking. Saying the women, like a lot of men have come in therapy and said, she doesn't know how to cook. And the girl comes and says, you also don't know how to cook. I've done the same MBA you have done. So if you didn't learn cooking, why do you expect that I should have learned cooking? अब कच्चा पक्का मिलके सीखना है तो very good. वरना बाई को बुला के बनाएंगे. Right? So this thing to say that the guy will expect still that the girl should cook and the girl will say, no, it is very, against feminism to ask a woman to cook or whatever. When they become too ziddi in the way they want to be looking at a relationship is when today the breakups end up happening much faster. Third, social rules are not there anymore. So if our time wo sharm hona ya lihaz hona ya not talk to elders in a particular way, we have given them a little freedom. That's the good part of it. जो थोड़ा कभी बदतमीजी में चला जाता है, where the children judge the parents to be unhealthy or toxic or whatever, a girl very freely talks about her in-laws. So पहले अगर बहुओं में बैठकर सास की बुराई करती थी, now a bahu will be willing to be able to step up and have that fight with, her in-laws. So there are a lot of smaller shifts which the society needs to bring in. Now, a couple of advertisements have been able to capture this shift. For example, the Ariel ad had picked up on how the woman is still doing a lot many more household chores and the man is still sitting on his laptop. When a father ends up seeing his daughter doing so much, where she is managing an office thing also and the ghar ka laundry also and the cooking also, he realizes saying, I taught you wrong. He goes back home and helps his wife wash clothes. He says, I might not be able to cook, but let me wash clothes, right? So that willingness, that advertisement में वो shift आने लगा है. Yeah, I think, I don't know कौन से wet wipes का कुछ तो ad है saying that to play with the baby everybody is there, but to clean the baby only mother is there. Why should only the mother do the cleaning? Let the mother-in-law do the cleaning. Let the husband do the cleaning. So that or there are some ads saying साफ नहीं स्वच्छ भी होना चाहिए, something wherein the daughter-in-law tells the mother-in-law that we will use Harpic to be able to clean that toilet. Or there is a Pepsodent ad where the daughter-in-law tells the mother-in-law, oh, don't worry, we are using the right toothpaste, so if he's eating sweet, I'm not worried. So that thing to come back and say, that shift to say, you're not saying that the girl has to adapt to everything which comes into her life. She is able to add back to the family she is going into. That shift आने लगा है, and I'm sure society में जैसे ही reflect होने लगेगा, we'll have maturer relationships. So it's not because of financial independence, it's not because of education, it's simply because we are changing, and change is difficult to deal with. So the pace at which children are changing, we adults are not changing at that pace. We need to increase our pace.
Yeah, you said that the younger generation is maturing faster compared to the old right now.
Yeah.
So that could be one of the reasons. And it might appear that, that both husband and wife are in a very good, stable relationship. But then, as you said, the inner circle, they tend to be slightly more manipulative rather than being accommodative. So that could also spoil a relationship.
Yeah. So there are many factors. There can be internal factors, handicap issues between the husband and wife itself, जो शुरू में नहीं पता चलता है because both are working, to only realize it during parenting, that both have very different values in the way they want to bring up a child, in the way they want to use money, right? And of course, yes, the way the rest of the system will align with it. So yes, the younger generation needs to trust the adults a little more, saying they are not all somebody who doesn't understand at all. They've also lived life. They need to be able to trust the adults, and the adults need to be able to change with the changing times and not say हमारे घर में तो ऐसा होता है, right? Where the other person is expected to adapt to you. You extend out and you say, आज तुम्हारे पसंद का, तुम जैसे खाना बनाती हो वैसा वाला सब्जी खाएंगे, instead of saying हमारे घर में तो ऐसा बनता है, तेरे ससुर को तो ये पसंद नहीं आएगा तो तू तेरा अलग से बना ले. No, it's about if you want her to like the food you eat, you would want to respect and value the food she brings into the system. Now you can have a thing saying हमारे यहाँ non-veg नहीं खाते हैं, but if you cook in a particular way, why not? I mean, we will also learn to relish newer recipes. So that two-way thing. So pehle if the women had to walk a lot more, nowadays women are saying we'll not walk that much. They are saying that the men need to come halfway.
Right. And then how does one really give space to each other? I mean, is it necessary for each of them to sit together and talk it out and then give space to each other and understand the limitations of the other guy and then ensure that you are able to cover up or complement it in a way?
So assertiveness in a relationship is very important. Now, assertiveness doesn't need to become aggression in the talking. It's like, you don't give me space, right? The assertiveness comes in more with me knowing first that what do I want and why do I want it. And no offense to another person, but this is something that I would like to do. Now, whether we do it together with you also beginning to enjoy to do it, or I do it in my personal space, then becomes a matter of discussion. So suppose there is somebody who prefers more indoors, and there is another person who prefers more outdoors, would want to go for a trek, would want to go for a vacation, would want to do these things. Now, it is not compulsory that to maintain a relationship, both of them have to do these activities together only. So I can be part of a trekking group or take up a trekking vacation maybe once or twice a year. It's not like every day I have to go out there. And the person who likes to be indoors can choose not to be part of this. But when they're indoors, they can choose to cook together, right? So you need to still find the common spaces which will keep the relationship together. And after discovering the common places, respecting the other person's choices enough and respecting the fact that the other person will not do it by escaping responsibility. वरना 80% of the fights was इसको तो घर में बैठना ही नहीं होता, इसको जब देखता घूमने जाना होता है. What am I meaning by saying that? I'm meaning to say that is that that person is not taking responsibility at home. So if I respect the fact that that person is also bringing in their best, I'm also bringing in my best, then that personal space. To say uske choices alag hain, mere choices alag hain. So if we went out with my husband, for example, to eat, it would invariably end up being a thali because he wouldn't relish any of the continental stuff. When you went out with children, they said ye khana to roz ghar pe banta hai, so they would want to try out different cuisines. So go for something Italian or go for something Mexican or things like that. So a lot of times we just had to do it separately. So if my husband was with us, we all went to a thali joint, which was rarely that we would go out that very often. But with the children, I would end up going out a lot more often, and then we will end up making choices according to what the children want to eat. So once in a way, my husband will also eat what the children want to eat, but then you figure out those balances with each other where you don't overstep or disrespect the other person's choices. Right? So personal space is required to know what I want, why I want it, and whether we can do that together or I need to do it in my own time, which is not my time with my partner. It is about my time with my friends or my time with my profession or things like that.
Yes,
So
you also
I
brought
would.
in. Yeah, go on.
So I would more say we need to find the right rhythm, in the sense that when you're dancing together, you're on the same beat. When you're doing your own steps, you go your own way and then you come back together. So a beautiful relationship is like a duet dance or a duet song where एक दूसरे के सुर और ताल में ताल मिलता है, does not mean you sing all the songs together and you do all the dances together. Right? So you find the rhythm in the relationship, and every relationship has its beat. Some have a slow beat, some have a fast beat, some have a 7 tal wala beat, some have a 3.5 beats wala tal. So you need to just know. I think a good way to look at a relationship is good music or good dancing. You need to just have that rhythm.
Yeah, so there has to be a good understanding of the situation and the timing, is what you mean.
Yes. The situation, the timing, each other's emotions, each other's abilities, each other's, you basically just respect what you bring to the table and what the other person brings to the table. Right? So for example, if you look at a special child, right, a child with special needs, that child can end up bringing so much unconditional love in the family. Nowadays, look at parents. They expect so much out of their children. फर्स्ट रैंक आना चाहिए, फिर यहाँ पे जाके एजुकेट होना चाहिए, इतना बड़ा जॉब मिलना चाहिए, इतना फेम मिलना चाहिए. When you look at a child with special needs, you look at that parent. You know that you don't have any of those aspirations that another parent would have, but still you're able to love and care for that child. So every person brings in a beauty into the relationship, whatever their weaknesses are. When you're able to look at that beauty, automatically the rest of the things fall into place. So yeah, every relationship is like a plant which grows on its own. We just need to provide it the right environment to grow.
Thank you, ma'am. To sum it all up, what is your closing remark and about being on this platform called Trendz Talks?
My first experience to be on Trendz Talks, so I think I wish you a lot of luck for whatever it is that you have set out to do. And I hope you are able to really attain whatever aspirations you've set out with Trendz Talks. Shall follow it for me to have more ideas about what's happening there. And my closing remarks on relationships is, let us not use words like compromise or sacrifice. Now, these are important words, but we twist them so badly that they look as inhibitors, saying, I can't be myself. look at words like adaptations, growth with each other, respect for each other, having great time together. So change a little bit of your vocabulary when it's come to defining relationships. Change a little bit of the concept called I want to be myself, because myself is a very tricky word. There's just so much more to ourselves we ourselves don't know, which will be something you discover in different situations. So permit yourself to know that there is a lot more to yourself and not hold on to a very tight definition of what you are or what a relationship should be. Let it be very fluid and growth oriented. So when anything is growing, the movement is always a lot more expansive. So grow rather than define. And that would empower our relationships beautifully. All of us want relationships. Let's just not dismiss them. Let's learn to make them great relationships.
So thank you very much. I hope our YouTube watchers would be able to benefit out of whatever you said today. So thank you and good night.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.